Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Tony, Tom Brady's pants from his final NFL game sold at auction for $89,000.
Tony Kornheiser, and yet no one has bid on my show-worn underpants. I will sell these. These are studio-worn underpants, and I'll sign them. What do you think I can get?
You can't frame them. You could frame Tom Brady's game-worn pants. You got any game-worn souvenirs in your house?
No, I don't. I mean, that I never played in a game.
I got one.
Well, what do you got?
Magic Johnson game-worn jersey.
Oh.
All-star.
Yeah, no, I don't have that, but I do have a Max Scherzer uniform.
That's pretty good.
In Binghamton.
Nolan Ryan. Did you have Nolan Ryan game-worn?
Yep, it wasn't game-worn. Okay. It wasn't game-worn, no. By the way, it's nice to be here. I was on my way to the Palm, and somebody said, why don't you show up?
He's here.
Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, should the Lakers feel embarrassed about getting rejected? Is Brad Stevens the Finals MVP so far? And Andy North will join us to preview the U.S. Open. But we begin today with the Stanley Cup Final. The Florida Panthers took a 2-0 lead in the series last night by beating Edmonton 4-1, the second straight game where the margin was 3 goals. Edmonton managed only 19 shots on goal. Wilbon, does this series feel different to you today than it did yesterday?
Yeah, it does, Tony, because much like the NBA series, I expected the loser of Game 1 to come back on the road and win Game 2. Yeah. And, you just mentioned the relatively sparse number of chances for Edmonton. 19 shots, but I don't know, 3 or 4 of them seem like real quality chances. And that ain't enough against Bobrovsky, who can just take you out. Yeah. He's given up 1 goal in 2 games of the finals. So I'm looking at it going, wow, suppose Edmonton, which I was banking on, just cannot muster enough offense. They came out in waves in Game 1, less so in Game 2. They didn't get the traffic in front of the net that I thought was requisite in Game 3 to just make Bobrovsky crazy. They didn't do that. And so maybe they can muster it. But it's going back, so it's going to Edmonton. I don't want to get too crazy. But it does seem like with Bobrovsky playing that well, lights out, as they say, it seems like Florida's really better.
I don't want to call the series now because I truly believe that a series doesn't start until a home team loses. And I clearly believe that Edmonton has tremendous goal scorers. But I sit here today talking about the Panthers, much like I sat in my house yesterday talking to you about the Celtics and saying to you, I think the better team is establishing itself as the better team. And I said to you last week about Florida that I thought this set up well for Florida. You know I'm not a hockey expert. I talked to a couple of guys this morning, Lee and Eric, who are hockey experts, and they said Florida is controlling the center of the ice rink. They're doing that. They're significantly better on defense. As you said, Bobrovsky's given up 1 goal in 120 minutes of hockey. Do you know what they average in the regular season? 3.56 goals a game, Edmonton. In the playoffs until this series, 3.50 goals. They're not able to do that at the moment. And so I think what we're seeing in Florida is a team that learned from being in the finals last year, has learned how to win it.
The one thing I'd learned in every sport, I've lived by this all my life. I'm a traditionalist. Defense travels. It conveys. And I am not taking my own traditional position by switching over and falling in love with Edmonton, which, by the way, seems to have one great line, of course, and then not a whole lot else. While Florida has depth, they can grind it out. They do control the middle of the ice.
The other team seems better and deeper, and they were in the finals last year, and they're better this year than last year.
I don't want to believe that yet.
Okay.
Edmonton, come on now. Let's move to Dan Hurley's decision to stay at UConn rather than coach the Lakers. Brian Windhorst writes on ESPN.com that the Lakers are a little embarrassed. Bill Ryder of CBS called it an embarrassment and added that it makes the Lakers look small. And Bill Plaschke of the LA Times added the adjectives demeaning and humiliating. Tone, really? The Lakers should feel that badly about this rejection?
Okay, so I'm not sure that I would use the word embarrassed, but I think the
humiliating.
I think the Lakers should feel a jolt of reality in this. I think the Lakers need to understand that they are not the most glamorous team in the world, and not everybody likes the Hollywood bubble. Not everybody. They just got turned down by a college coach. Mike Krzyzewski did this some years back as well.
Before.
They offered Hurley double the money that he's making now, and he said no. They offered him a chance to coach LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and he said no. Now, maybe one of the reasons he said no was the way they have churned through coaches since Phil Jackson.
Yeah.
Nobody's had more than 3 years. It's like living in the inside of a washing machine. The Lakers organization has no respect for coaches. LeBron James has no particular respect for coaches. The Lakers sort of think that everything is like a movie or a television show, that if you're big box office, that's all that matters. They don't have a good team at the moment. If I have this correct, it's an amazing statistic. They have finished higher than 7th in the West once in the last 12 years.
The bubble year.
Bubble-licious. I find that incredible. They have no long-term plan. They just do patchwork.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the Hurley part of this. I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying. That's fact. But if you look at this, if you're Danny Hurley, first of all, I just wrote down the teams that are in better position to win than the Lakers in the Western Conference, just the West. We're not dealing with the Celtics yet or anything like that. Dallas, Denver, OKC, Minnesota. The Clippers have many times exponentially more money in the person of Ballmer, the owner, than the Lakers
don't
do.
have a lot of money.
And the Suns, with Ishbia's money, have much more money. No, much more money.
I know they have much more
than
money.
the Lakers do.
But nobody wants to go to work for him.
Okay, but we don't know. People go to work for whoever has money. And that leads me back to this. If the Lakers had gone out there, no, humiliate, all that stuff is hyperbole. Just stop. Humiliated, stop. I mean, you can go to work for the Lakers the next day. Nine out of 10 people in the basketball and sports industry are going to do that. But here's what you have to do if you're Danny Hurley. You have to say to him, here's $100 million. 6 or 7 years, whatever, $100 million.
Yeah.
You're not going to offer him less than Monty Williams, although Monty has been to the NBA Finals. You're not going to offer.
Not getting there with Detroit. You're not getting there with Detroit.
But he's been.
Okay.
And he may not get there with the Lakers.
Okay.
But the point is, you got to go out there with an offer that knocks his socks off,
Well,
and they didn't.
Mike.
And maybe they can't.
I said
they
this
don't
to you-
have Ballmer money.
I said this to you yesterday. It's not a good job. It is not a good job. They delude themselves into thinking that they're
Not as good as they think it is.
one free agent away from being a dynasty again. They haven't been a great team since Kobe Bryant was a great player. That's got to be 10, 12 years now.
Yeah.
I think they're delusional. All right, Wilbon, I want to revisit a moment you had on the Countdown show after Game 2 the other night. Bob Myers asked everybody on the panel who you thought the Celtics finals MVP was. And after everybody took a shot, Myers came back and said it was Brad Stevens. Wilbon, is Myers right?
I certainly wouldn't argue the point. It's a great point. It's a great get to come up with Brad Stevens in that position. Of course, I'm going to say of Bob, that was a little so self-serving and just a terrific observation with Bob having been GM and understanding the complexity and the subtleties of how hard it is to put a team together. And Brad Stevens has done that because the Celtics 4 years ago, looked sort of out of it. They were, like a 500 team. And then they made some deals, some smart picks, and some good trades. Look, I said Drew Holiday when that question was asked by Malika Andrews. It could be Porzingis, who had the one game he needs to have. And by the way, we don't even know what Porzingis is.
No, he's got a multisyllabic injury at the moment.
But he's not going to get you more than one win in a finals. He got him one. That's all you need, okay? Because Drew Holiday's got him at least one. Derek White has been fabulous. So has Brown. Tatum hasn't even played a great game yet.
That's right.
So they've got an ensemble. And that's why I thought all year long the notion, this narrative around Tatum, that he has to be the best player. No, he doesn't. It's an ensemble. That's what the Celtics always have when they're great.
So let me go back on this to Bob Myers. He's a GM. He's a GM of a multi-championship team.
Four-time champion.
And so he looks at GMs differently than we do. He looks at the architecture. He looks at the team building. I understand that. I just want to go back to conversations we've had. There was a point in time where you said when they traded the Celtics, when Brad Stevens traded Marcus Smart, right? And you said he's the heart and soul of that team and they'll never win without him.
Yep.
But they bring back Porzingis, who at least got him game one.
That wasn't the important acquisition.
I understand. I'm going to get to the important one.
Good.
And you said to me about Porzingis, I don't even understand this. I don't think he's any good.
Why?
But he won game one.
Why?
Because he's hurt a lot. And he's hurt right now. But maybe he comes back.
Right.
The big trade they make is Malcolm Brogdon, who you love.
Love him.
Traded him away. You were down on that. Even though they got Drew Holiday, you were down on that.
I was never down on getting Drew Holiday. I called it correcting.
And Drew Holiday
Correct.
is a better point guard for them than they had, and he's a great defensive player. So essentially, they got Holiday and Porzingis for nothing that it didn't even matter at that point. And but let me say this. Can't ignore the fact that Danny Ainge drafted Tatum and Brown. Yeah. You have to give him credit
and maneuvered smartly and got Tatum, right?
Yeah.
But Drew Holiday's the key to this. That was correcting. If they didn't have Drew Holiday, I don't think they would be here. As great as Tatum and Brown are as a tag team, Drew Holiday was needed. He was necessary because losing Smart was losing the heart and soul of that team.
They haven't missed
But when Milwaukee
them.
made the grand mistake, and it looks really bungling now, to let Drew Holiday go to their number one rival in the East, that shifted the dynamic.
Well, he went through Portland.
He did, but he wound up.
But they didn't know that. When they trade him out west, they don't know that he's coming back to Boston. Let's take a break.
Looks bad.
Coming up, how does the U.S. Open at Pinehurst set up for Scottie Scheffler? We're going to ask Andy North.
We'll also ask him about Tiger playing his first Open since 2020.
All I know is that every time I mention something they do well, you say, nah, it's a bad move. They're no good. They're not going to win. And they've been the best
didn't like
team.
it.
Best team all year.
I did not like getting rid of Marcus Smart. I admit it. I didn't like it.
But it's not a trade like Auerbach made. Joe Barry Carroll for McHale and Parrish.
That's the greatest swindle of all time.
All time. The U.S. Open tees off at Pinehurst on Thursday morning. That's where we find our friend, ESPN golf analyst Andy North, who has won 2 of these. Scottie Scheffler, totally on fire. Does his game set up well for Pinehurst number 2?
It absolutely does. He's on this historic run. He's playing better than anybody, number 1 in the world. But the key thing for Pinehurst is you've got to really drive the ball well, and you've got to put the ball in the fairway, and then from there, you've got to be absolutely super aggressive and very, very accurate with your approach shots. He's the best iron player in the world, and this place sets up beautifully for him. It's a lot of runoffs. Chipping and putting is going to be important, but the iron play is absolutely the premium shot.
Andy, we're going to get back to putting in a second, but of course, Scheffler's the world number 1. PGA champ Xander Schauffele's ranked number 2. Rory's number 3. They're going to be together Thursday and Friday at least. What do you think of that grouping?
I think it's absolutely awesome. You know, we always talk about getting the best players playing together. They're 1, 2, 3 in the world right now. They're all playing beautifully. I think it's going to be hard to get a good rope line seat out there for that one. But they've played so much golf together, so it's not like it's a big deal. I think all in all, they'll play great, and hopefully the winner comes out of that group, I think, at the end of the week.
You talked about putting, so I'm going to go back to that for a second. Defending champ Wyndham Clark said the greens are already borderline too fast. Andy, you've played and owned this particular tournament a couple of times with really fast greens. Is that a fair observation? Does it make a big difference? What do you think of what Clark is saying?
Yeah, I think Wyndham is close to being right on there. These greens are super, super fast, and there's such small areas to hit into. If you don't get it in the right areas, you're going to have a lot of downhill putts. The player's going to try to play to the middle portion of the greens. Most of the holes are going to be cut on the edges, so you're going to be putting a lot of times down grain, downhill, and if that's the case, they are going to be super fast. We will see some players putt the ball off the green this week.
Ooh. That sounds like you and I can do that, Tony. Put the ball
it all
off
the
green.
time. Sure.
Andy, we know the favorites, and we talked about Scheffler already. Who are guys who are not being discussed as openly that you look at and say their games suit this or the way they are playing suits this?
I think it's going to be really important, as I said earlier, iron play. So you go back and look at the guys who lead in greens regulation. A guy like Colin Morikawa is a fabulous driver of the golf ball and really a good iron player. He's coming off of playing really well. Last week finished second to Scottie, so I think he's a type of player. If you do start missing greens, you're going to have to get the ball up and in, and getting the ball close, chipping and pitching, or even putting from off the edges of the greens is going to be really difficult because you putt up the hill, and then it gets and slopes away from him down toward the middle portion of the green. You're going to have a ton of 6, 7, 8 footers for pars this week, so a player who is a great short putter has a great chance too this week.
We'll get you out of here on this. Wilbon and I cannot talk to anybody about golf without mentioning the name Tiger Woods, because we saw him throughout his entire career. And the question is, he'll be playing in his first Open since missing the cut at Winged Foot in 2020. Do you have any sense about how he feels about this event right now?
I've spent a bunch of time around Tiger this week watching him play. He looks more athletic than he did at the PGA. I think every time he's come out and played since that accident, he's been better. This is a golf course that's a little bit easier to walk than the last few majors that we've played. But I think most importantly, if you go back and look, the majors he's played, the weather has been absolutely awful. It's been wet, it's been cold, it's been windy. This is going to be a week where it's going to be super warm. It's a flat golf course. I think he's got a chance to play some pretty good golf this week.
Do you think he can make the cut? Think he can do that?
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if we get a T25 out of him this week, which would be pretty neat.
Wow. Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Let's take one last break. Still to come, the Jets say Aaron Rodgers' absence from mandatory minicamp is not excused.
And Carlos Rodon and Corbin Burns are doing what they're paid a lot to do well.
You think he'll make the cut?
I
know
thought
you
so,
follow
but
Tiger.
Andy's with him. He said he spent some time with him.
What do you think? What do you
I
think?
didn't think so, but I like hearing that. I like.
Happy time, people. Happy 42nd birthday, Diana Taurasi. She's now the oldest player in the WNBA, and she'll be the oldest player on the United States Olympic basketball team as she goes for her 6th gold medal. Taurasi won 3 NCAA championships at UConn and twice was most outstanding player in the Final Four. She's won 3 WNBA titles, all with Phoenix, the only team she's ever played for, and is a 2-time Finals MVP. She's the all-time leading scorer in WNBA history, averaging 19 points a game over 20 seasons.
Come on.
She's got 5 Olympic gold medals and 3
GOAT.
world championships, and I will happily make the case that Diana Taurasi is the greatest female basketball player of all time.
And I'm not voting against that, but I only have 2 people, a pair of Cheryls, Cheryl Miller and Cheryl Swoops, 4-time champion, 3-time gold medalist, perhaps ahead of Diana Taurasi. And if anybody wants to say Diana Taurasi because she's 40 years old, should
42.
be left at home
42.
in favor of Caitlin Clark, I'll come to your house and fight you. That's absurd.
Those Cheryls spell their first name differently, you know that.
Yes, I do.
A not-so-happy anniversary, Adam Hadwin. On this day last year, the Canadian golfer ran onto the 18th green with a bottle of champagne to celebrate his close friend and countryman Nick Taylor's thrilling Canadian Open playoff win over Tommy Fleetwood. Taylor had just drained a 72-foot putt to walk off the tournament and become the first Canadian since Pat Fletcher in 1954 to win it. Hadwin was ecstatic, but as you can see, his somewhat erratic behavior drew the attention of a security guard who threw him to the ground. Neither Hadwin nor Taylor made the cut at the recent 2024 Canadian Open, but Hadwin finished solo third at the Memorial last weekend.
Hadwin was really good last week.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, till the last few holes.
Okay, but he at least was out there challenging the world number one.
Yep.
Put a scare into it for a while.
A little bit.
Being Morikawa, that was fun.
A little bit. Happy trails disastrously to another game for your White Sox.
Not mine.
The White Sox led Seattle 4-0 through 7
So
innings.
bad.
Then in the 8th, the Mariners evened the game. In the 9th, they got a walk-off grand slam by catcher Cal Raleigh, who goes by the glorious nickname of Big Dumper. In the words of Seattle manager Scott Service, quote, Big Dumper does what he does. Late in games, he always has big at-bats, and he's always going to get the job done for us, unquote. This was Seattle's first walk-off granny since 2021, and Raleigh's second walk-off homer. But, Mike, his 11th home run in the 9th inning or later.
That's
Your
bad.
White Sox are now 17-50. That's a .254 winning percentage. It's on pace for 41 and
I
121.
have nothing new to offer on the White Sox. I've been saying they're the worst baseball team I have ever seen.
Now, mine were the Mets.
I get it. And they
The
were
original
real.
Mets.
Okay,
Yeah, 40
big
and 120.
dumper.
Yeah.
You not spend a lot of time in baseball locker rooms. We have our suspicions
Yes, we do.
on how he got the nickname
We're not going there.
Big Dumper.
We're not going
We're not going there.
Not going there. One omission. John Rahm has withdrawn from the U.S. Open due to an infected sore on his left foot.
You're better, John. All right, I know about the feet and stuff like that.
No good.
Come on, I hope John.
Let's go to the big finish.
Let's do it.
Luka Doncic said today, quote, our defense has not been bad, but we really can't score. That's our main problem, unquote. Do you agree?
Well, the defense is giving up, 105, 107. But if you told me that's what they're going to give up, I would say Dallas can score more than that, and they haven't. So, yes, I guess I agree with Luka. He and Kyrie, particularly Kyrie now. Caitlin Clark and the Fever lost again, badly this time to the Suns last night. Your thoughts?
I watched a lot of that game. Indiana is not a competitive team. Caitlin Clark played 22 minutes in the game. No
fourth quarter
not
minutes.
good. Carlos Rodon of the Yankees and Corbin Burns of the Orioles now both won again. Which is the bigger deal?
Rodon. He's having a bounce back. You need that. Burns, you know you're going to get a consistent performance. You have Rodon being 9-2 with an ERA sub-3. Pretty darn good. Aaron Rodgers missed mandatory minicamp today. You concerned about that?
No. They have committed themselves to Aaron Rodgers. And he didn't play at all last year. He can do whatever he wants as long as he gets on the field. That's all that matters.
Stays there longer than 4 plays.
That's right. Last one, Paul Skeens on the mound tonight against Cardinals. What do you expect?
I don't know who to hate more. Skeens and the Pirates, they got these 2 starters who out there striking out everybody, and they're in the division and an impediment to the Cubbies. And the Cardinals, I hate from birth.
Yeah.
So I have a clicker. I can't be on that game very long.
We're out of time. We will try and do better the next time. And I'm Tony Kornheiser with a big flag.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. You can get the PTI podcast on the ESPN app or Apple Podcasts. And now, your sports center.
Don't get used to me. I've come last week and this week. Don't get used
Twice
to
in a week.
No, don't get used to it.
Do I hear 3 times?
No, 0
From the
chance.
crew? Huh?
0 chance.
Yeah!
Teams in Stanley Cup final history have completed the comeback, good for a rate of just 9%. On the NBA side of things, it's a little more common, but still happens less than 15% of the time. Tony and Mike, they've got more in tonight's PTI bonus topic.
All right, Wilbon. Which team is more likely to come back and win their series, the Mavericks or the Oilers?
Ugh, I don't want to put money, ESPN bet, on either one of these.
Right.
But I'm starting to sink in, and I don't like this, that Edmonton is maybe too top-heavy, that they may have the 2 best players in the series, but they're top-heavy and they don't have enough, and Florida's got too much depth and too much defense and too grindy for Edmonton to overcome all that. So I'm going to say Dallas, although I don't really believe in that necessarily either. Look, Kyrie Irving, who's had a great season and a great playoff, he's got to have a great Game 3. A great Game 3
He said
in
2
Dallas tomorrow.
awful games.
Okay, but he can have a great Game 3.
He can, sure he can.
And he's got to have a 3 to get them back in this series. So I'm going to go with that because I'm going to semi bet on him.
All right. So I would say, just theoretically, that I think it's easier to win a hockey game than I do to win a basketball game.
Why?
I just think so. I think you can get a 1-0 or a 2-1. You don't have to get a lot of points. You don't have to grind it out. So you can win it. But you can't win it if you can't beat the goalie.
No.
If you can't beat Bobrovsky, you can't beat the goalie.
He's better than Skinner.
But I would say theoretically that's a little bit easier. My sense of Dallas is that, and I know basketball better than hockey, we're watching the better team win these games. Now, if Porzingis is hurt and can't play at all for the rest of the series, it changes things a little bit. Sure, it does. Yeah. But I wouldn't bet on either of them. What is the thing in hockey? If you go down 0-2 in the finals, you're 5-49.
And in the NBA, you're 5-31 just because the NBA is a newer league.
Yeah.
But neither of these things is good to be down 0-2 in the championship series.
No.
That's it. We're done. Back to you.